One of my favorite stories reading as a child was The Pied Piper. I remember I was maybe about 6 or 7, and I had a book called The Pied Piper, and I believe it was a little golden book. Um, yeah, it had to be. It had the little gold rim trim on the side, and the cover was a blue sky with like the cobblestone, and it was a man dressed in like a red outfit with a little brown like flute. And I remember having my mom read me that story often. It was a good, little story, little tale. I also like the one about the two little elves that would work with the shoemaker. And to me, those were just great little stories to tell. I never thought anything of it. And as I got older, I started to understand where the Pied Piper story came from. And at this point in time, I'm like, wow, that's kind of dark to make it into a golden book for kids to read. Honestly, I really did read that Pied Piper story so many times. I ended up wearing it out, and eventually, like, the book fell apart, and I don't have it anymore. But could you imagine, as a child reading that? It's like playing Ring Around the Rosies. Is it? Yeah. So Ring Around the Rosies, if you're not familiar with, is a tale about the bubonic plague. So, I mean, I suppose a lot of things that we do now have, I guess, a hand in the past, and sometimes that hand is a little dark hand, and, things are a little creepy. The Pied Piper. Now, the reason I bring it up is because I know recently, and maybe like a couple of the podcasts, I've brought up the story of El Señor con el Costal. And El Señor con el Costal is one of like parents' classic things to tell kids when they're misbehaving. Portate bien, o si no te va a llevar el Señor con el Costal. And I've always thought, wow, like, do you really have to go and tell a child, a man with a stack is going to take you? I mean, again, to each their own. As a parent, you do what you want, right? But it's a little scary. It's a little traumatizing. So kids grow up with like trauma and fear, and sometimes that manifests into different anxiety, and it just gets very complicated. Personally, I'm not a fan of having telling kids, te va a llevar el señor con el costal. I mean, why do you want to give kids nightmares at night? As a parent, don't you want to sleep? Why would you want a child to come, to you in the middle of the night, waking you up and telling you, "Ama, está un señor con el costal en mi cuarto." Like, it's just creepy. It's just very creepy. But I suppose parents say it because it's been like a tradition, brought up from shared from parent to parent, from generation to generation. Um, so that's what I'm saying. Like it, when it comes to stories like that, I can see how they get passed down and why they get told. It's just tradition. But sometimes we gotta shuck tradition and just be like, you know what, out the window with you. But the Pied Piper, not necessarily a story that's told to kids to keep them in line, but it has similarities to El Señor con el Costal. I've been to the store, and kids are misbehaving, and I know parents, like, if I'm passing by, sometimes the parent will be like, "Te va a llevar la señora? Te va a llevar la señora?" I'm like, "No, I don't want your snotty child coming with me. No, like, no, 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 no. Your snotty child can stay with you. I'm not gonna take." And I've said it. I have said it. No, I'm not taking you. No quiero batallar. I don't want to deal with you. And the kids are like, "Wait, what?" And the parents just like, they're like, "You're supposed to go along with it." I'm like, "No, I'm not going to go along with it. Okay, I'm not taking your kid because, that's how things happen. That's how people get, accused of stuff. And no, no, not for me. Not for me at all." But anyway, this week we are going to talk about the Pied Piper. And I guess a little bit. So, like I mentioned, we're going to talk about the Pied Piper. If you hear some snoring in the background, guys, I am sorry. Like I said, this is my lunch hour, and my pug just happens to be in the room with me, and she's snoring. She has separation issues, and she's like, today I just want to be next to you all day long. I am working from home, so when I get to work from home, I'm with my pug and my Yorkie, and they often do follow me. So if you hear my Yorkie start barking, because she's a very barky little, pup, ignore her. And I'm sorry, I do apologize early. But yeah, my pug, if you hear her snoring, that's her. She's taking a nap in this room. So the Pied Piper. Okay, like I said, I became familiar with the Pied Piper through a little golden book that I had as a kid. I remember in elementary, I'm not sure what grade exactly, but I know in elementary, we did discuss the Pied Piper story maybe like once. I think it might have even been a Disney Mickey Mouse movie, to be honest with you. I'm not drinking coffee today, guys. I'm drinking water. It's very hot. Gotta stay hydrated. But iced coffee tonight. So if you're around, meet me at Southern Park and we'll have a coffee together. Or we'll go to Nerve. It's wherever the wind takes us, because it's whenever I clock out of work. Anyway, yeah, so the Pied Piper, I believe it might be a Disney flick as well, somewhere in there with Mickey in there. I know they have the Mickey Mouse where he's like Tiny Tim. So if they have that, they have to have the Pied Piper. I just know they do. I would just have to like search somehow, but I'm going to find it, and if I find it, I'll link it to, well, I mean, I won't probably get you a direct link, because then Disney lawyers will come after me, and we don't want that. We don't got money for Disney lawyers, but I'll find, something, and I'll tag it on Instagram somehow. Anyway, the Pied Piper. So it is, the Pied Piper, well, okay, so like I said, this is going to tie into El Señor con el Costal. El Señor con el Costal is known as the Sack Man, similar to the Boogeyman. So the Pied Piper is a legend that goes that the Piper was hired by a town to lure away rats, okay? Because according to the Pied Piper, or to the Piper, he had a technique, he had skill to be able to take away, rats or pests from a town. So this town's like, do we have an infestation of ratitas? Can you get rid of them? And he's like, I got you, fam. I got you. So he went ahead and got to this place, to this little town, and he started tooting his little flute and got rid of the rats, okay? So he comes back, like, after getting rid of the rats, and he goes to the mayor of the town. He's like, yo, I want my payment. And the mayor's like, I don't know what you're talking about. He's like, we settled on a payment that you would pay me for me getting rid of your ratitas. And the mayor was in denial, or and so because of that, well, the Piper's like, you know what? You're gonna be like that? Fine. I can play like that too. So what he ended up doing was he ended up taking the kids from the town and taking them, he played his little musical flute, which must have been magical, to be honest with you, because how else would he able to have lured rats away from a town, and unless this thing is magical? And he played his little flute and lured the rats away, and when he came back, he lured the kids away. When he didn't get his money, he said, I'm going to play my flute and take these kids with me. So he did. He played his little flute, and los niños se fueron. They followed him. It's like the ice cream man. You know what? That's creepy. If you think about it, kids run to the ice cream man. Like, I remember I did as a kid. As a kid, I'd hear, the ice cream man playing the little, the Pop Goes the Weasel song, and I remember I'd be like, Mom, the ice cream man! In the summer, of course, because, well, during the school year, I don't remember hearing it, but I know in the summer that was, like, we would hear it. And I would be looking for my chanclas, asking my mom for $1, and we'd be going outside, and, always a snowball, always, a Ninja Turtle ice cream, always something, but we always got a little treat. Maybe, like, once a week. It wasn't every day, but, we did get one maybe, like, once a week. If not, every other week for sure. And, yeah, as soon as we hear it, we'd run out there. So it's kind of creepy to think that this man would play a little tune and these kids would just flock to him. But, you know, in terms of the ice cream man, that does happen. Like, kids do flock, and, you know, they probably think, oh, nothing bad can come of this, and they follow him. And again, with the ice cream man, most kids don't think anything bad's going to happen to them, so they follow him too. And which is why I'm thinking, you know, those have a connection together. What do you guys think? Do you think there's a connection there? So yeah, the Pied Piper. Let me get back to that story. In 1824, so the legend has some variants, okay? It does vary from time to time, in regards to the payment, in what town it happened in, how, you know, in that sense, and like what happened to the kids, like that. Those are the variants, okay? But and not 1824. I'm sorry. In 1284, there was a town of Hamelin, and it was suffering from a rat infestation. So a piper dressed in a multicolor pied, quote unquote, pied clothing appeared, and he claimed to be a rat catcher. So he promised the mayor a solution to the problem with the rats. The mayor in turn promised to pay the piper for the removal of the rats. The piper accepted and played his pipe to lure the rats into the Weser River, and all the rats drowned. Despite the piper's success, the mayor reneged on his promise and refused to pay the piper, going so far as to blame the piper for bringing the rats into the town himself and extorting the mayor for money. The piper was pissed off. He was enraged, and he stormed out of the town, and he vowed to return later to take revenge. So, on St. John and Paul's Day, while the adults were in church, the piper returned, dressed in green like a hunter, and playing his pipe. In so doing, he attracted the town's children. 130 children followed him out of the town and into a cave, after which they were never to be seen again. Now, again, like I said, this does have variations, and depending on the version, sometimes there are just 3 children who end up staying behind, sometimes just 1. So the reason these 3 kids in this particular version stayed behind was because 1, he couldn't walk, so he wasn't able to. I mean, he could walk, but was very slow in walking, disability. And so he was not able to catch up to everyone else and could not follow quickly enough. So he eventually lost the tune of the piper, okay? The second child was deaf, so he couldn't hear anything and therefore, didn't hear the music. And the last child was blind, and because he was blind, he was able to see where he was going, and because he wasn't able to see where he was going, he eventually got lost from the track, from the group, and ended up staying behind. So these kids stay behind, and they are the 3 kids that inform the villagers of what had happened when they came out of the church. Because everyone comes out of the church and they're like, hey, where's little Gus? Where's, little John? Where's Helga? And no one's around. So these 3 kids are like, you 3, what happened? And the 3 are like, well, there was this man and he's playing a really catchy tune. It might have been Pop Goes the Weasel. I'm not sure. But, he came in and he's like, hey, let me play you a song. Follow me. And we followed. But I'm Pepito here, he's deaf, so he can't hear anything. I can't walk fast enough, so I lost the group and eventually I couldn't hear it no more. So I don't know which way they went. And, Chicle acá, pues she's blind. Necesitan anteojos. So they're like, what? Who came in? Who came in? And the kid might have been like, well, it was that man that you never paid for those rats. And the people were like, oh my gosh, let's go looking for him. Let's hunt him down. In other versions of the Pied Piper, the kids are led to a top of a hill. And in that version, he basically makes them jump off the hill and they die. Because not really a hill, more like a little mountain. They end up dying. In another one, he takes them to this. They follow him into this land, and the land is like, magical, and no one can get there unless like they have the key, and the key is the pipe, that led them there. Now in another one, the piper takes the kids, and just like he did with the rats, he takes them to a river and has them all drown. Some versions state that the piper returned the children only after he got paid. He's like, if you want your kids back, pay me my money. Pulling a Rihanna right there. I mean, I don't blame him. I'm not going to do the work for free. You either pay me what I've earned, or, like, you're never going to see your kids again. Well, I mean, no, I'm not going to take your kids, but, yeah, like, if you want this work to ever be done again, like, pay me what I'm owed. So, in Hamelin, there was a street name. I'm gonna try to say this without butchering it, but if I butcher it, I am so sorry. It is called Bungelosenstrasse. Bungelosenstrasse. It's a street without drums. It is believed to be the last place that the children were seen. Therefore, music and dancing is prohibited. It is not allowed on that street at all. So if you're feeling a little, sprightly and want to play a little dance there, have a little, fun there on that street, it is not allowed, because I guess it's considered like a sacred area. Now, the earliest mention of the story seems to have been on a stained glass window placed in the church of Hamelin circa 1300. The window was described in several accounts between the 14th and 17th centuries. It was destroyed in 1660, though. There was a fire and everything got destroyed, including the stained glass. But based on the surviving descriptions, a modern reconstruction of the window has been created by historian Hans Stolbertin. It features the colorful figure of the Pied Piper and several figures of children dressed in white. The window is generally considered to have been created in memory of a tragic historical event for the town. Hamelin town records also apparently... Sorry, let me rephrase that. Hamelin town records also apparently start around that time with that event. The earliest written version on record is from that town chronicles an entry from 1384, which reportedly states, "It is 100 years since our children left." Now, research has been conducted for centuries with no explanation as to what happened, what event happened there that could have caused that. But it is universally accepted as a true story. In any case, the rats were first added to the story in a version from circa 1550, 1559, por ahí. But in earlier accounts before that, there were no rats included. So a number of theories do suggest that the children died of some natural cause, whether it's a disease or starvation. And so the piper is symbolic for a figure of death. Analogous themes which are associated with the theory include the dance of the death, which is Totentance or Danse Macabre, a common medieval trope. Some of the scenarios that have been suggested as fitting this theory include that the children drowned in the river, or they were killed by a landslide, or they contracted some kind of disease during an epidemic. Which is why I think maybe they added rats because of the bubonic plague, trying to correlate that the kids died because of the plague of, the rats, and, put one with the other, and that's how you get rats in the story. Another modern interpretation also says that it alludes to an event where Hamelin children were lured away by pagan or heretic sects to a forest near Koppenbrugge, the mysterious Koppen Hills of the poem, for a ritual of dancing where they were all perished during a sudden landslide or a collapsing sinkhole. It has been noted that all local reports of the incident date to the specific date of June 26. which is a day of the pagan midsummer celebrations, and often also place emphasis that the children being led away to Kolpin, meaning hills, could have something to do with it. It was traditional in some areas of Germany to celebrate midsummer by lighting bonfires in the hills. This has led to the speculation that the children may have been led away by a pagan shaman to participate in some of these celebrations, and while they were there, they were massacred by local Christians who were like, no paganism here, take that somewhere else, and let's just do away with you guys, right? So, it has similarities, in pop culture, it's similar to, or it has similarities, or similarities can be drawn, from the pipe, or this story. Okay. So if you haven't seen the movie Storm of the Century, it's a screenplay written by Stephen King, and it has similarities to the Pied Piper. Okay, so in this, screenplay in this movie, a powerful blizzard hits this small town off the coast of Maine, and the storm is so powerful that it cuts off access to the island, and everyone is stuck there. As the town prepares to battle the storm, this man, named Andre Lenoge, a menacing stranger with a black cane decorated by a silver wolf's head, makes his presence known. He's like, "Hey, bitches, I'm here." So Andre Lenoge gives no hints of his origins or what he wants, just vaguely saying, "Give me what I want, and I'll go away." So a town's resident reveals that Lenoge kidnapped her and warned that if he does not get what he wants, he will cause a mass suicide, like he has done before. So everyone gets together in the town meeting, and they're discussing, well, what do we do? What does he want? And Lenoge wants one of 8 children. And he reveals that he is super old. He's 1,000 years old, but he's like, "No, I'm not immortal, so I will die." He's like, "But before I die, I want to, have a protege, to raise in my image, and, so give me one of your kids so I can do that." And he promises the child will become like him and will live a long life and be very powerful. And he's like, "If I can't have the child, if you just won't give it willingly, I'm going to take the child one way or another by force, okay?" He's like, "And if you don't do what I want, I will punish this town and make you all suffer and die, by refusing me." So everyone's like, "Oh no, we can't give in to him." And they eventually vote on it, and I think they draw straws, and the person who drew the shortest straw is the one who is unlucky, and their kid dies. Not dies, but they get taken away. And everyone's like, "Oh no! You have to give up the kid. It's what we agreed upon." And the man's like, "No, I never wanted this." But the man's wife is like, "Do it." Well, shortly after, she's like, "I have regrets. I don't want to get my kid after all." But the kid's taken by force, and everyone's attacked, and eventually other stuff happens, and it's a movie you need to watch. I won't give the rest away, but it's a movie you need to watch if you haven't watched it. I believe you can find clips of it on YouTube. But you didn't hear from me, though. You didn't hear from me. Anyway, it draws similarities to that because here's this man who is capable of causing severe harm, controlling people, because there's a moment where all the kids are dreaming. They're all suspended in a temporary dream state, and he's like, in this state, if something happens to them, they will die. He's like, so either you give me what I want and I let them go, or they die. So it's similar to that in the Pied Piper, where he's like, give me my money and I'll return your kids to you, in order for us to be even. So that's how I see it. Now, in regards to El Señor con el Costal, Señor con el Costal is the man with the sack, and he's believed to take kids who misbehave. Which is similar to the Pied Piper in the sense that when kids, when the Pied Piper doesn't necessarily take kids that misbehave, but when he needs to, teach a lesson, he will take what matters to you. And pues el señor con costal, pues he takes to you because you matter to yourself. So he is considered the boogeyman, and kids fear him. And honestly, if you are not from around here and you've never heard someone say "Te va a llevar el señor con costal," have you even lived your life? Because if you have heard someone say "Te va a llevar el señor con costal," then you know. And just to make sure, yeah. So basically, that's how I see the Pied Piper, El Señor del Costal. He is someone that takes you for misbehaving. They've also referred to him as Con Señor del Saco, which I'm not too sure why. I would need to look into it a little bit more as to why. I hadn't found it yet, but I've heard people say El Señor del Saco. Let me see if I have it in my notes here, but I don't think I do. Now, basically, it's supposed to be like un brujo that takes kids. Like, I guess that's what he, kind of like Krampus, I would suppose, you know. And Krampus, he has his sack, and that's where he sticks his kids in there, or his basket. He's like, I'm gonna take these naughty kids away. So, I suppose El Señor del Costal is similar to Krampus in that sense, you know. Takes kids that misbehave, and he sticks them in there because, pues, se están portando mal. Anyway, what do you think of this week's Pied Piper podcast? Like this episode, you know, what are your theories on it? You know, in regards to what actually happened with those kids. Do you think that they got, you know, they died and it's just a figurative story, or to like you know memorialize these kids, or is it something more dark? Let me know. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode on the Pied Piper, El Señor del Costal. I am more than likely will have a follow-up episode on El Señor del Costal where I dedicate it just to El Señor del Costal. Right now, this is more about the Pied Piper, but how I draw similarities to El Señor del Costal and to apparently the Ice Cream Man. Let me know what you think, how you feel about it. Do you see any of these similarities as well? Or is it just me, you know, looking into things? Anyway, follow Coffee and Calacas on social media. You can visit our webpage at calacaspod.com, where we have links to all our social media accounts. Like and subscribe for our latest content, and remember to hit the little notification bell so you can get alerted when we upload new material. And remember that life begins after coffee.